The evening wind swept across the rice fields as far as the eye could see. Frogs and crickets answered each other in a rhythm like a chant no one could finish. The sky was dyed a deep navy, while faint threads of household lights flickered lazily in the far distance. But there was one corner of the village even darker than the rest. An old stilted wooden house stood alone by a row of tall palms. The space beneath the house was empty, only split bamboo strips and a heap of broken jars. And an old winnowing tray lay face up like a dull, lifeless eye. The locals called it Bansamjan, the Moonlight House. Someone once told me, if the night was so silent you could hear your own breathing, you should run. Otherwise, you would hear a faint sobbing that raised every hair on your body. And when you finally looked up, you would see the faceless woman standing on the balcony. My name is Rin. I grew up in this village but moved to the city for work years ago. Tonight, I came back because my mother is ill. Arriving at dusk, I still had to take food to the village headman at the pavilion. So my path carried me past the Moonlight House without my meaning to. Old memories returned with the scent of earth after rain. As kids, we dared each other to run past here. Whoever stopped first lost. I once lost and cried because I heard a comb scraping through hair in the dark. Tonight the wind died. The quiet made my heart hammer. I paused for a moment. Just to look properly once more, the balcony planks were sawn with patterns like eyes. The right corner where a glass cabinet once stood was empty. I drew a long breath and caught a faint, strange fragrance. Like champaka blossoms mixed with a thin trace of blood. Don't linger, she see you. A soft voice by the fence made me start. I turned to see Aunt Kamla, the elder who knew every corner of the village. She held a basket of greens and looked at me as if I were a stubborn child. Go home, she shows herself a lot these days. She who? I asked, though I already knew. Aunt Kamla gave a sad smile. Sangjan, of course. She's been dead almost 20 years, yet still circles here, going nowhere. I almost laughed, but noticed her hands, her nails dug into the basket with real seriousness. Auntie, can you tell me again? I only recall she died badly cursed. Aunt Kamla glanced at the dark house, as if to say, tonight is a poor time to make a spirit remember us. But finally she nodded. Let's sit by the canal pavilion. I'll tell you everything if you dare to listen. What the old remember well. The pavilion by the canal smelled damp sweet. We sat just beyond the flicker of a small lamp. Aunt Kamla cleared her throat like someone who had told this often and began. Sangjan was so beautiful I nearly forgot to breathe. But beauty's karma sometimes comes from those who never know enough. There was a man named Bunfang Rich, handsome, smooth-tongued, but he had a lawful wife, Molly, who ran the rice shop in the market. I vaguely remembered Molly few words, knife-sharp eyes. Rumor said she was shrewd at trade and firm with people. At first, Sangjan didn't know he was married. A tender-hearted girl, she trusted sweet words. When she learned the truth, she couldn't pull free. Bunfang pressed harder, visiting by night. By day, he sent silk, food, trinkets of gold. A poor girl's home sways easily. She sighed. The whole market whispered. Molly couldn't bear it. She went to Mokam, a sorcerer. He warned her that the spell is fierce, it can change a person's very face. But she agreed, paying the fee in gold and red cloth. I swallowed. Her voice dropped lower. He molded a clay doll mixed with Sangjan's hair and nails, then drove in 9 black nails, and buried it under the temple Bodhi, chanting. A curse. Let her charm end, her face vanish, her breath be cut. A flash in my mind, a girl beneath the Bodhi at night, her face blurred like mist. Moon hid among branches above. Aunt Kamla told of what followed chronic illness. And some nights she screamed, for the mirror showed only a smooth surface, no eyes, no mouth, no face at all. Her mother wept nightly. Folk healers said, "This isn't a sickness." At the temple, the elder monks said, "Accept and forgive." But Sangjan hurt, she was terrified. She said someone sat on the bench by her door at night, combing hair-cold nails stroking her face. When she tried to cry, she couldn't, as if her mouth were sealed with human skin. How did she die? I asked, though deep down, I didn't want to know. On a stormy evening, she clutched her face, writhing. Blood flowed from eyes and mouth, though there were no wounds. People gathered but couldn't touch her, snared by the spell. When it went quiet, she wasn't breathing anymore. She nodded toward the house. Days after the burial, folks began seeing a girl combing her hair on the balcony. When she turned, there was no face but a sobbing that sounded near death. Some who passed fell ill. Some dreamed over and over of someone covering their faces with skin, and some sought Mocam for counter rites, but it rarely helped. And that sorcerer? I murmured. He's dead, strangely so. Black patches rose on his neck. He collapsed at the very body where the doll was buried. People said the spell rebounded. She shrugged as if to shake off a chill. But Molly still lives. Life isn't better wealthy house, yet silent. They say she hasn't smiled since that day. We fell silent and listened to the frogs plucking at the water's skin. The wind brought champaka to the tip of my nose again. The wind brought champaka to the tip of my nose again. I asked the question that unsettled me. Auntie, they say if you see the face of the faceless ghost, misfortune comes. Is it true? She watched me for a long time, her clouded eyes glinting. Fear can sprout misfortune on its own. But some ghosts are born of the living's curses. If you go home tonight, don't look up at that balcony. If you go home tonight, don't look up at that balcony. I swallowed and nodded, yet the warning tugged at me strangely. The more forbiddance, the more I wanted to try. I passed again on my way back. A light drizzle began. The earth gave off a fresh scent. I stopped before the house without meaning to, as if my soles were caught by that patch of ground. I stopped before the house without meaning to, as if my soles were caught by that patch of ground. The place of rumor. The sound of the comb comes before she does. Fwoo, fwoo. A faint sound like wood against strands of hair. So soft I thought it was palm leaves in the wind. But no, it had a cadence. I called into the dark. Who's there? No answer, only that unforgettable scent. Champaka tinged with thin blood. The night it all began. A small shadow moved across the balcony. I stared when I should have looked away. My mind screamed, "Don't look," but my neck tilted up on its own. A figure sat in profile. A young woman with long jet black hair. She wore a dull sarong and a small flowered camisole, right hand delicately holding a wooden comb. She drew the comb lightly through her hair. I couldn't see her face, she was bowed. My lips went dry. As if entranced by an unreasonable truth, I whispered, "Sengjan." The comb paused a heartbeat. Then moved slowly. She turned her face, if one could call it a face, toward me. A smooth, pale expanse. No eyes, no nose, no mouth, only tiny pores. In the center that fluttered as if breathing. I stepped back. My heart roared in my ears. A muted sobbing rose from that place, louder than reality. I tried to breathe, but it felt wrapped in skin. The corners of my mouth cracked with dryness. Something icy crept up my neck. "Come home, child," my mother's voice rang from the dike. She ran to me with an umbrella. I jolted free like a snare had snapped. I looked up again. The balcony was empty. The wooden comb rolled tooth by tooth, tapped and fell silent. That night I ran a fever as if an eye had been opened to more than the village's quiet. Dreams without breath. The fever made me drift and wake, dreaming over and over. Someone stretched skin tightly over my face. I couldn't cry or breathe, but I heard a woman sobbing very close by. "I hurt. I'm cold. I want a face. Give me back my face." The voice didn't come from a mouth, but seeped from the skin of where a face should be, like many tiny holes breathing at once. I started awake at 3 a.m., drenched in sweat, blankets twisted. Mother slept beside me. The moon hung tired outside the window. I got up to fetch water. I whispered to rouse myself, not real, just a dream, but then, in the bucket's mirror surface, I saw my reflection with a smooth white face, no eyes, no mouth flicker and vanish. At dawn, I made merit at the temple. A gray Bodhi stood by the ordination hall. Standing near brought a chill through my flesh. I went to pay respects to Pra Kru Bantawi, an elder revered by the villagers. He sat at his cutie, greeting me gently. "Back again, Rin?" His voice was mild. "You've seen Sangjan's old house, haven't you?" I nodded. "Venerable sir, I dreamed. I saw more than I should." I recounted up to the shadow in the water. He listened with eyes closed, then spoke slowly. "Some spirits are not cruel by themselves, but by the curses of the living. Don't fear too much, but don't provoke it. There are many ways to undo it, yet the surest is asking forgiveness and accepting the truth." "Whose truth?" He paused. "Of everyone knotted into this Mali, Bunfang, Sangjan's mother, and Sangzian herself. If she doesn't receive the truth, she remains faceless." A hazy understanding dawned. He placed prayer beads in my hands. "If you go tonight, light incense and simply say, 'Forgive us,' but don't go alone." "Go where? Here to your cutie?" "To her house, and perhaps to the Bodhi's root as well." The words Bodhi root sent a senseless chill up my spine. The name no one speaks. I found only one friend to go dead, the headman's son, around my age. We grew up together. He's a skeptic and loves tempting bad luck. "You just dreamed it," he said that afternoon. "But if you're going," Aunt Kamala said not to go alone, so I'll come. "I'll film it too as proof there's nothing." I scowled. "Don't toy with the dead." "Yeah, you're not toying." He shrugged, but worry hid in his eyes. Before dusk, we prepared what the monk advised: incense, candles, clean water, a small white cloth, and simple food to offer. We crossed the dikes to the moonlight house. The day's last light gilded the palm tips, then vanished sharply. Only the heavy blue of night remained. It was so cold under the house that sweat turned to chill. Det lit his phone. "You scared?" "Scared, but it must be done." We set the tray at the steps, pressed our palms, lit 3 sticks of incense. I whispered, shaking, "Miss Sangshan, Rin asks forgiveness. If I ever offended you by my gaze or recklessness, or any words, please forgive me. May your suffering ease." The wind fell eerily still. The balcony's shadow hung like cut paper, no form at all. Det rolled his shoulders, half relieved, half cold. "See?" "Nothing." "It's not midnight," I said, not knowing why. From the dark by a post came the combing sound fu. Fu, Det cursed under his breath, and aimed the light upward. We saw her, a young woman in a dull sarong, sitting in profile as before. Before her stood an old glass cabinet I thought long gone there, though it shouldn't be. By day I had seen the space empty. Det spoke the name everyone avoided: Sangjan. The moment the word left him, his knees buckled, hair bristled, phone clattered to the floor. I grabbed his hand hard. In that shadow, the girl slowly turned, a smooth, pale, non-human expanse toward us. Where her mouth should be, it moved as if voicing words without sound. Then she raised her hand, as if to rip that place open into a mouth. "Don't," I screamed. "We don't wish to see, we ask forgiveness." Everything stopped. The sobbing grew clearer from nowhere. Teardrops struck the boards, though there were no eyes to shed them. I lifted the water bowl and spoke as the monk taught. "If you need water, drink. If you meet a path, go. May your hatred lighten." "If you need water, drink. If you meet a path, go. May your hatred lighten." A voice seeped from all directions. "Return my face." I thought of the tail beneath the Bodhi, the clay doll and black nails, and looked toward the far temple. Our breathing grew heavy. "The Bodhi roots," I whispered. "What stripped her face?" "Is still there." As if hearing, the balcony shadow quivered and pointed toward the temple-long index finger, no less trembling. "Let's go," I told Det. He shook his head crazy, he said, but walked anyway, too shaken to stay. The Bodhi's roots sprawled like the world's veins. My small lamp flickered, trying to hold. Det held a short spade from the headman's house. "We hadn't meant to dig, but foolish courage brought us here." "Where do I even dig?" He muttered. "Where it feels coldest," I said, not understanding. I circled, hand brushing the roots. The champaka smell thickened to dizziness. I stopped at the most pungent spot and asked the tree's leave. Forgive us if we trespass. The spade bit soil with a sodden thud. Det dug shallowly, wary of the roots. But beneath the top layer we found something that wasn't rock. A hard clay figure the size of a palm, bound tight with black thread, with 9 rusty nails radiating around its head like a terrifying halo. Det shook, hands heavy, eyes asking what next. I draped it with the white cloth, murmured a simple apology, and touched one nail's tip. A killing cold seeped into my finger like holding ice on a stormy night. I forced it loose tight. Forced again, the nail clicked faintly. At once the forest wind halted as if it had stopped breathing. From the distant cutie, planks creaked in succession. Several blossoms fell at once as if someone had shaken the branch. Det swore, "We shouldn't have messed with this." "It's not messing," I said. "We're undoing a snare." I pulled the nails one by one. My hands went numb as if plunged into ancient ice. By the 5th nail, sobbing swelled from all sides. It pressed so hard that I saw tiny pores on the clay moving like breath. I paused, panting, and spoke into the dark. "We who live ask forgiveness for the dead. Whoever tied this curse, bear witness. Let her see her face again, the face of truth." The 6th, the 7th, Det helped with trembling hands. At the 8th, the lamp went out, wind roared, darkness swallowed us. We froze, hearing our own hearts. The 9th I pulled with all I had. The sobbing broke off. Then silence. Nothing for a moment. We breathed hard. Our eyes adjusted enough to see the root's shadows. I lifted the clay figure. The air's breath changed, slightly warmer as if the clay itself breathed. "Return it to the house," I said, though I didn't know what came next. Confession of the living. We reached the moonlight house near midnight. Something in me said the living must stand in truth too. Det hesitated, then called the 1-number Molly. Molly arrived sooner than expected, thinner than I remembered, eyes still sharp, but lined with fatigue. She looked at the wrapped clay like facing her own past. "What is this?" I bowed. "Auntie. Tonight we unearthed what was buried under the Bodhi. It stole her face. Will you help ask forgiveness?" Molly went rigid. Seconds later her fingers trembled, eyes blurred, tears came unbidden. She stood still, then spoke slowly. I was wrong," she said in surrender. "I sought Mokam myself. I brought her hair and nails. I spoke words I shouldn't, thinking I'd get my husband back, that the market would hush. I didn't think she'd die. When I heard, it felt like someone dug off my whole face. At night, I dreamt someone sat at my bed's end and covered my face with skin. I tried to undo it, but everything rebounded. I haven't smiled since. Yes, this is what I deserve, isn't it?" That question needed no answer. Det's shoulders sagged. I regarded her with understanding envy, clinging. The fear of losing one's own face had made her strip another's. I pressed my palms. "Ani, speak to her, please. Be here together." We went up to the balcony, set the clay figure on the bench. I placed the old mirror that had appeared in the shadows. I didn't know how it came, but tonight it was there. Molly pressed her hands. "Sanjan, I ask forgiveness. I was foolish, afraid of gossip, afraid to fall. I wanted my face back, so I took yours. I was wrong." Spray blew onto the balcony. Champaka turned so sweet it was bitter. In the dim mirror, a long-haired shadow seemed to appear with a smooth white face that faded from solid to translucent. "Is that enough?" Det whispered. "Not yet, one more," I said, hating the answer. Bunfang. The name rippled the air. Footsteps sounded on the wooden stairs. A middle-aged man came up more haggard than expected, reeking of liquor. His eyes darted. "What's all this at night?" Molly looked at him, voice calm. "Come, Fang." "It's time," Bunfang scoffed. "Time for what? I'm going to bed." "Market tomorrow." Det blocked him. "No, you'll listen tonight." He pointed at the wrapped clay. "This killed Sanzan. And you. What did you tell her? What did you promise? Did you deceive her?" Silence thickened. Raindrops beat time on the wood. He rolled his eyes, throat working. "I was just a man." He smiled with spent sadness. "I liked her because she was beautiful. I promised idly to leave my wife. I knew I wouldn't. I was addicted to my own sweet talk and her tears. I'm vain. You want confession? Fine, I was wrong. His words spilled sloppily, but it might have been his first plain admission. Molly lowered her eyes, stung by a truth she never wanted. I knelt before the clay. Hear this. The truth, the living's face of truth. Suddenly, the mirror reflected not us, but the young woman in her dull sarong behind us all, face still smooth white, with faint grooves like the beginnings of eyes. And where a mouth should be moved, I hurt. I am cold. I want to breathe. I drew breath. Then, breathe through me. I spread the white cloth over the clay, bent close and whispered, "Let me be your breath for a moment just tonight so you can see the way." Det opened his mouth to stop me, then froze at my tears. Wind rose, the candle quivered. A cutting cold swept my face. It felt like someone laid a thin skin over my own face. My lips went numb, my eyes burned, fluids ran freely. For a moment I struggled to breathe, then sensed another breath using my nostrils. My mouth moving gently. A whisper slipped through my own lips, not my voice. "Mother, I'm cold." Molly sobbed hoarsely. Her mother's long gone, yet she calls she's still a child. She laid a hand on the cloth. "Forgive me, child." "Forgive me." Bunfang stood rigid. His lips worked as if to speak, but no words came. Perhaps because sorry, so simple, was too heavy for him. The breath through me warmed. The mirror's mark sharpened into half-formed eyes, and a small mouth trying to smile. I closed my eyes. Tears flowed. Suddenly the wind stilled. Champaka thinned, rain ceased. Frogs resumed their orderly chorus. I opened my eyes, the mirror's figure faded, leaving only the three of us and the nail-freed clay. The night the mirror smiled. "Is it over?" Det asked carefully. I wasn't sure. Molly seemed about to speak, but listened to the silence instead. We sat in the breeze a while before I set the clay by the window, facing the fields, and said softly, "If your face is returned and the path is clear, go. If there is still a tie, we will keep speaking truth." The nightly combing sound stopped and never returned. That night, Molly went home with a face 10 years older, but her head held higher. At the steps, she told me, "Thank you, Rin, for not leaving the dead alone," and left. Bunfang lingered, smoking one cigarette after another like a man out of roads. He stared at the mirror that now showed only his own reflection. A man not handsome, not rich, not a hero. Truth. A man not handsome, not rich, not a hero. Truth is the heaviest mask of all. He dropped the butt to the ground. "I'm leaving," he said, and walked down the stairs, the way people with no destination do. Det gathered the offerings, his heart still pounding. "You're crazy, but good crazy," he whispered with a faint laugh. "I think tonight I might finally sleep." I smiled weakly. "Let me try one more thing." I lifted the mirror, tilting it to catch the moonlight slipping past the clouds, and shifted so the shadow of the fields crossed the sky behind me. I met my own gaze, eyes swollen from tears, and said to the reflection, "Forgive him, and forgive myself too." In the mirror, I thought I saw a faint smile on the face of a young woman, just behind my shoulder. Or maybe it was just firelight, but I chose to believe the first. The end or the beginning. 2 weeks later, the village grew strangely peaceful. Children who were often sick got better on their own. The cows no longer startled when passing that house. The coon's sound on the balcony never returned. Yet on some quiet Buddhist nights, I still caught a faint scent of champak flowers drifting from the fields, as if someone walked by without hurry. Molly began going to the market more often. She stopped wearing large gold ornaments, dressed in plain cotton. Her eyes stayed sharp, but a gentle softness had begun to settle there. She went to the temple, offering small meals to the monks. I saw her talking to the village mothers with a voice neither high nor abrupt. She never spoke of others' karma anymore, perhaps because she had seen enough of her own. As for Bunfang, he grew quiet. The liquor slowly left his hands. He swept the temple yard each morning, and sat beneath the Bodhi tree every afternoon, as if wordlessly apologizing to the roots. One day he came to my door and simply said, "I want to pay respect to Sanchan's mother." I nodded and led him there. He placed a small garland of flowers and bowed in silence for a long while. When he rose, his eyes were red. Since then, he lived quietly, like someone who has seen the abyss inside his own heart. As for me, I dreamed less. And when I did, my face was no longer smothered in skin. Instead, I walked through moon-warmed rice fields, with a long-haired woman by my side. She said nothing, only turned her face, blinked slowly, smiled in gratitude, and drifted away with the wind. The truth after the silence. At the end of the rainy season, I decided to visit Aunt Kamla. I told her everything. She listened with a gentle smile, her hands skillfully peeling a coconut with a small knife. That's good, child. The dead can leave once they've been heard, and the living can stay once they've truly seen. I asked her something that had long lingered in my mind. Auntie, do you think the faceless ghost still exists? She tilted her head thoughtfully. Ghosts don't stay or leave the way people do. There are traces of curses and attachments. If the trace remains, it's like a shadow in the late afternoon. There, then not there. But if people stop casting shadows toward it, the shadow fades on its own. So, does that mean we should never speak of her again? Auntie laughed softly. No. Speak of her with kindness, not for thrill or fear. That way, the next generation won't see her as just a ghost story, but as the lesson of a real person. I nodded, feeling that her words were a long wavering pillar that had finally stood upright. The lesson of a face. As time passed, I chose to believe the Moonlight House was no longer haunted, but a place that held stories of words to say and words to keep. Some evenings I sat on its balcony, listening to the silence, realizing silence itself is also a word that says, enough. I spoke with the old monk more often. He told me, every day people leave their homes with two faces, the face they want others to see, and the true face they hide. If we fear losing face too much, we will always end up hurting someone else's face. One day you'll find those two faces of your own, so tangled and lost in shape, but they become what people call faceless. I smiled. How do we fix it then, Mwangta? Accept the truth of your faces, both the beautiful and the flawed. Forgive yourself and forgive others. That is how all bonds are undone, without needing holiness or spells. I pressed my palms together, silent, yet somehow the water in my eyes grew clear. Time turned until the full moon night came again. The village glowed under a great round moon. I carried 3 incense sticks up to the balcony, placing them before the old mirror. Its reflection held me in the rice fields behind me, as a cool wind swept the eerily calm night. Sanchan, I called the name people once avoided. If you're here tonight, I want to say thank you. Thank you for helping the living find their own faces. I hope you go where the light is. I closed my eyes, breathing the faint scent of champy blossoms drifting from afar, and felt a strange courage. I raised my hand and gently touched the mirror, as though knocking on someone's door. For a moment, nothing happened. Then I heard something, like a wooden comb gliding through hair, but softer and shorter than ever before. Not a sound meant to frighten, but like a last sound someone makes before departing. I smiled. Go well, I whispered to the mirror. It seemed someone softly whispered back, a breath that wasn't mine. That night, I slept without dreams for the first time. Months later, the village teens stopped daring each other to run past the Moonlight House. They now strummed guitars at the pavilion by the canal instead. Sad love songs had become a gentler kind of modern prayer. People at the market no longer gossiped with sharp words. Molly sometimes laughed when the children at the rice shop teased each other. Bumpang rode his motorbike to give alms each morning, as if finally beginning to live a life fitting for a man his age. I stood watching the golden rice fields sway, beside the old house still quiet but no longer sinister. I thought, silence is not a curse, but a chance for people to hear their own voices more clearly. The voice that says, we are all responsible for the faces of one another. And if someday the villagers look up again on a breezy night, they might see only moonlight brushing the rice tips and silver streaks. That alone would be enough. Epilogue, the face that was lost. I wrote this so those who weren't here would know that the faceless ghost was never just a scary tale to frighten children. It was a warning about love gone wrong, about the fear of losing face, and about playing with curses until both the living and the dead suffer. There were no winners in this story, only those who admitted they were once wrong, and dared to speak the truth that gave the dead their faces back. and the living their hearts again. If one day you face someone you believe to be faceless, remember the truth may have been stolen from them by our own hands. Try reaching out, try saying, "I'm sorry," and "I forgive you," because sometimes just breathing through our words for one night might be enough to help them find their way home. And if you pass that old wooden house at the edge of the fields and see its silent balcony, don't run, don't lower your gaze. Just bow softly in your heart and keep walking without looking back, because some ghosts wish only to be remembered as they were when they had a face, not as they were when they were faceless.